Pursuant to the order of the House of January 3rd, 2025, the chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for the morning hour debate. The chair will alternate recognition between the parties, with time equally allocated between the parties and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip, limited to 5 minutes, but in no event shall debate continue beyond 11:50 a.m. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Boss, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor a very important person in my life. He was actually a distant cousin. His mother was actually a boss, a cousin of my grandfather. His name was Ray Doerr. He's from Virgins, Illinois, who passed away on July 12th at the age of 98. Ray gave back to his community in big ways and small. He served as a trustee in Virgins for 67 years and as mayor for 10 years. He was the chairman of the Republican Party of Jackson County for 24 years. He was a friend to governors and senators, but he never let politics change who he was. He stayed grounded. He stayed loyal to the roots. And I'll say personally, I stand here today because of Ray. He was one of the first people who encouraged me to get into public service. He saw something in me early on and never stopped offering his advice. And when I say early on, I was 23 years old when he encouraged me to get involved in local politics. And I'll always value our friendship. Ray was a proud Navy veteran who answered the call to serve our country during World War II. He enlisted at just 17 years of age, serving in the South Pacific, including during the invasion of Okinawa. When he came home, he married his wife, began a life rooted in faith, hard work, and service to others. He worked in the mines. He delivered gas to farmers. He was a sales manager for Massey Ferguson. He farmed. He served as the auditor for the Illinois Secretary of State, and he was an auctioneer for 80 years. He was one of the hardest working men I've ever known. He and I were married 68 years at the time of her passing in 2012. Together they raised a son, Jeff, built a family business, and shaped a community. Ray's legacy is not just titles he held, but the lives he touched. He was a mentor, a friend, and a man of his word. He loved Southern Illinois and served it every day of his life. We're all better for having known him. May God bless Ray Doerr, and may he bring comfort to his family and all his loved ones. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to revise and extend my remarks, if I may.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, and still I rise, a liberated Democrat, unbought, unbossed, unafraid, censured but not silenced. And I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to address the topic of racism infused in Texas politics. Racism infused into Texas politics. Mr. Speaker, I have in my hand a letter from the Justice Department. It is a letter that has as its reference unconstitutional race-based congressional districts, and then it cites the districts. Texas District 9, occupied by a person of color. Texas 18 was occupied by a person of color who is deceased, to be filled soon. 29 occupied by a person of color, 33 occupied by a person of color. Now, this letter goes on to infuse race into the conversation. Read the last line, last sentence in the last paragraph. It reads, if the state of Texas fails to rectify the racial gerrymandering of Texas 9, Texas 18, Texas 29, and Texas 33, the Attorney General reserves the right to seek legal action against the state, including without limitation under the 14th Amendment. So race has been infused into this letter. It is sent to the Honorable Greg Abbott, that's the governor of the state of Texas, and the Honorable Ken Paxton. Dear friends, at the end of the day, if they can fulfill what they proclaim in this letter, there will be more white representation in Congress from Texas and less black and Latino representation. This is nothing more than an attempt to silence many of the voices that are emanating from communities of color in the state of Texas. It is racist. Now, there in this country seems to be a problem with people saying racist. It's okay to say anti-Semitism, but don't say racism. Racism has not received the same amount of acclaim when it comes to dealing with racist issues that anti-Semitism has received when it comes to dealing with things that are anti-Semitic. Well, I'm not afraid. I'm going to speak truth to power and about power. And here is the truth. Under this president, Republicanism is eroding and devolving into racism. Under this president, who has declined to allow persons from countries of color to come into the country when he has opened the door to Anglos from South Africa. This president has found a way to circumvent what would ordinarily be a society that appreciates and respects people of all colors, and he's turning society against people of color. This letter, if they succeed with this, will be the equivalent of having a mid-decade redistricting without the empirical evidence necessary to do it with a sense of justice. They will do this, and in so doing, it's comparable to having the halftime at a basketball game, and one team decides, because they have the power to do so, to remove 2 players from the other team and let that team proceed with 3 players, and they'll now proceed with 5. Oh, no. Wait, you have to have 10 players on the floor. So what they'll do is they'll just take those 2 players and they'll add them to their team. So they'll play with 7 and the other team will play with 3. They are diminishing the amount of representation that people of color will have in the state of Texas. Republicanism is being equated to racism too often in this country, and that is not the case. Republicanism has always been about conservative policies, but now they're about racist policy. This president is injecting racism into presidential policy. It is unconstitutional. I'm going to fight it, but more than that, I'm going to tell the truth about it. And if I happen to be one of those who is extricated, who is removed, evicted, if I happen to be one of those, I will be bloodied but not unbowed. Nobody is going to silence me. You can come after me, but you won't stop me, you won't silence me. I refuse to allow republicanism in the form of racism to dictate the policies in the state of Texas without my voice being heard. And finally this. Friends, I have on my Texas tie. I'm proud to represent my state.
The gentleman's time's expired.
And I'm proud to say I stand against republicanism as racism.
Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the president. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Bean, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a beam is a ray of light, a symbol of hope, and for more than 40 years, Beam in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, has been that light, delivering hope and help to Northeast Floridians in need. It started in 1985 by representatives of local churches who saw people needing a hand up. And so today, I rise the 40th anniversary of Beach's Emergency Assistance Ministry, BEAM, a lifeline for families facing hardship in eastern Duval County. Places like Mayport, Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach, Atlantic Beach. From keeping the lights on to filling the pantry, supporting seniors and single parents, BEAM continues to show up with compassion and care. Now, Mr. Speaker, I know what you're thinking. 40 years old, and they don't look a day over 29. That is true. And what's also true is their volunteers and benefactors are everyday heroes, quietly providing critical services to thousands of neighbors each year. And as our community has grown and changed, BEAM has remained a constant source of light, guiding families through tough times with warmth, direction, and hope. Today we celebrate more than a milestone. We celebrate that ray of light that is never dimmed. May BEAM continue to shine, lighting the path forward for those who need it most for years to come. Bring it in closer a little bit right here. Mr. Speaker, today I rise with a heavy heart, but a grateful spirit to honor the life of my friend, Commissioner Carol Eugene Franklin, who passed away peacefully in Hilliard, Florida, at the young age of 76. Born in Boonville, Mississippi, Carol lived a life shaped by hard work, deep faith, and a quiet but profound dedication to others. He was a proud combat veteran who served in the U.S. Army's 9th Infantry Division during the Vietnam War. That same courage and resolve stayed with him throughout his life, whether it was in service to his country, in business, or in leadership with the Nassau County Ocean Highway and Port Authority. Carroll was a man who showed up, not just when it was easy, but when it was needed. He believed in faith, integrity, and perseverance. He loved his family dearly. And for 42 years, he stood side by side with his beloved wife, Judy, raising their sons, Garrett and Greg, and cherishing their granddaughter, Diana Dell. To his church and to his church family at First Baptist of Boulogne, his brothers and sisters, and his many friends, nieces, nephews, and neighbors who knew him, Carroll was the kind of man whose legacy is etched not in headlines, but in the lives he lifted. Mr. Speaker, we say goodbye to a veteran, a man of character, a family man, and my friend. It hurts because that's the impact that Carroll made on so many. May his memory continue to inspire us all and serve with heart, live with purpose, and love without hesitation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Ramirez, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life and legacy of Karen Lewis, a tenacious organizer, a teacher, and a truth teller. Long before she became known to many as the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, or CTU, Karen dedicated 20 years to serving Chicago students as a chemistry teacher, including at Illinois' third own Lane Tech College Prep High School. As the president of CTU, Karen built an intersectional solidarity movement rooted in love, injustice, and the radical belief that working class Black and brown children deserve fully funded public schools. In 2012, she courageously led her union in a successful and historic 7-day strike for a fair contract that captured the nation's attention and brought new life into Chicago's labor movement. Today, we invoke Karen, both her wisdom and her vision, to guide us as we stand opposed to all the forces of austerity, of division, of fear, and hate. May her memory continue to fuel our fight, and may she rest in peace and power. Thank you, Karen. Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor the life and the legacy of Marian Stamps, a Chicago civil rights icon and tenant organizer. Marian moved to Chicago in 1963 at a time when public housing residents were denied the full measure of dignity that they deserved. But Marian organized. She co-founded the Chicago Housing Tenants Organization, and she took on the Chicago Housing Authority, demanding respect, safety, and a seat at the table for tenants in Cabrini Green and beyond. Marian built people power from the ground up, participating first and only successful national rent strike against HUD, exposing the corruption and holding Chicago city leadership accountable. Today, we invoke Marian, both her blueprint and her audacity to challenge those in power, to guide us as we challenge an administration that would deprive us of affordable housing and deepen housing inequality. May Marian's courage and her spirit, which lives in her daughters Carla, Tracy, Guana, Justice, and Commissioner Tara Stamps, guide us, organize tenants, challenge systems, and never ask permission to make our voice heard. Thank you, Marian. And Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor the life and legacy of LGBTQ+ rights activist John Pennycuff, a proud gay man, a fearless organizer, and a tireless advocate for dignity and justice. John understood that queer liberation wasn't just about marriage or visibility. It was about housing. It was about healthcare and survival. And alongside his partner, Robert Castillo, John advocated to have gender identity added to the Chicago Human Rights Ordinance and Chicago Fair Housing Ordinance, increasing fair housing protections for LGBTQ+ people in Chicago. Today, his memory lives on in the John Pennycuff Apartments, an affordable housing community in Illinois' 3rd Congressional District that proudly honors the vision of inclusive, just neighborhoods. Today, in a moment where LGBTQ+ rights are under attack, we invoke John and his uncompromising vision of holistic justice. May his memory call us to act with compassion, with clarity, and without apology. Thank you, John. And Mr. Speaker, it is my honor to rise to honor the life and legacy of the one, the only, Reverend Dr. Calvin Morris, a civil rights giant, a scholar, a spiritual leader whose work helped shape the conscience of this nation. In 1967, at the request of Reverend Jesse Jackson, Dr. Morris became the national coordinator of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference's Operation Breadbasket, today known as Rainbow Push Coalition. He served through the assassinations of Dr. King and Fred Hampton, guiding the movement with courage, with conviction, and with faith. Dr. Morris also served for nearly 2 decades as the executive director of the faith-based social justice organization, Community Renewal Society, where I'm grateful that our paths got to cross. Today, in a moment when the civil rights gained, thanks to our elders, are under attack, we invoke Dr. Morris and his moral clarity, his prophetic witness, his fire for justice, and his habit for breaking out into song. May his memory inspire the moral courage we need in a time such as this to walk boldly in his footsteps. Dr. Morris, may you rest in power, and may we continue to be inspired by who you are and continue to be for so many of us. Thank you, Dr. Morris. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock, for 5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, the Democrats are outraged that the largest illegal mass migration in history that they unleashed on our country must now be followed by the largest repatriation in history. Now, they insist that they don't object to removing violent criminals, but that's a demonstrable lie. The whole point of the Democrat sanctuary laws is to protect criminal illegal aliens from being turned over to ICE for deportation. Instead, they release them back into our communities where many have gone on to commit even more heinous crimes. Recently, when federal officers served a criminal warrant on a Southern California marijuana farm, activists staged a riot. Officers liberated 12 minors forced to work at this facility. 8 of them were among the 465,000 unaccompanied alien children that the Democrats placed with poorly or unvetted sponsors during Biden's administration. It appears the marijuana farm was employing scores of illegal aliens to undercut their competition in flagrant violation of U.S. labor and immigration laws. Now let's start with some simple truths. If we don't force our immigration laws, we have no immigration laws. If we have no immigration laws, we have no border. And if we have no border, we have no country. And we've gotten a glimpse of what that means as foreign flags are waved by violent mobs setting fires, ransacking businesses, and terrorizing motorists in our sanctuary cities. So what do our immigration laws actually say? They say clearly and unambiguously that any and every adult who illegally enters our country shall be detained. Those are the exact words of the law, shall be detained. The Democrats simply ignore it. Now, they've got a right to challenge their detention through a writ of habeas corpus. If they're charged with a crime, they have a right to a trial by jury. But at no time do they have the right to be released back into our communities. Under the law, they, quote, shall be detained. Unless they're charged with a crime, they've got the right to leave detention anytime they want for any country that will admit them. What they don't have is the right to remain in our country unless a judge determines otherwise. That's why the administration is expanding detention facilities, because that's what the law requires if our borders are going to mean anything. The Democrats call these concentration camps, but the detainees are free to leave for home any time they choose. Indeed, that's the purpose, to provide temporary shelter while transportation is being arranged. Deportation is not a punishment, and it requires no criminal charges. It is a simple administrative act. Challenging it does not invoke a right to freely enter and stay indefinitely. You either wait here in detention or in another country that will accept you. Those are your options. Reportedly, more than 1 million illegal aliens have already decided to return home, an option for which our government will arrange transportation, a $1,000 stipend to help them resettle, and a right to apply for legal entry. If they wait until they're encountered by ICE, they'll be taken into custody, deported, and forbidden from re-entering. Now, that is a choice. But what about those who, after breaking our immigration laws to enter the country and breaking our labor laws to work here, have broken no other laws? Well, that doesn't mean there aren't victims. For years, American families have struggled as the flood of illegal labor has taken their jobs and suppressed their wages. During Biden's 4 years, most new jobs were taken by foreigners, and Americans' real wages declined. Just 6 months into the Trump administration, most new jobs are now taken by Americans, and real wages are growing once again. That's not a coincidence. Supporting this impoverished illegal population cost American taxpayers an estimated $160 billion a year. It flooded classrooms with non-English speaking students, packed emergency rooms with illegals demanding care, and overwhelmed homeless shelters and food banks meant to help Americans. Worst of all, the most violent and dangerous criminal gangs in the world accompanied this population into our country and have now taken deep root in the Democrats' sanctuary cities. That's why we must enforce our immigration laws to the letter, as this administration is doing. America admits more legal immigrants under our laws than any nation on the planet, and will continue to do so. But that does not give license to millions of foreign nationals to violate those same laws. That's a simple truth the Democrats refuse to acknowledge. I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from North Carolina, Ms. Adams, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with a heavy heart to honor a giant in our state's history, a giant in our profession, and a giant in the fight for civil rights, the late James Ferguson II, who passed away on Monday, July 21st at age 82. Mr. Ferguson was not just a brilliant legal mind. He was a trailblazer, a truth teller, a teacher, and a proud HBCU graduate who believed deeply in the power of the law to right all wrongs. And he spent his life doing just that, from lunch counter protests in segregated Asheville to courtroom battles that reshaped this nation. He co-founded North Carolina's first interracial law firm. He stood before the Supreme Court in Swan versus the Charlotte Mecklenburg, and he won, changing how schools across America desegregated. He defended the Wilmington 10. He fought for Darrell Hunt. He trained black lawyers during apartheid. And he did it all with quiet grace and a velvet voice and an iron resolve. Mr. Ferguson understood something that I often say about HBCUs, that they were not built for comfort, that they were built for purpose, and so was he. Educated at North Carolina Central University and Columbia Law School, he returned home not to make headlines, Mr. Speaker, but to make a difference. And in my journey, I admired him long before I ever met him. But when I ran for Congress, he became a trusted friend, a supporter, and an advisor. Mr. Ferguson didn't just practice law, he lived it. He believed that justice must be pursued even when it's unpopular and even when the odds are long. And that is the legacy of James Ferguson, not just the legal victories, but the courage to take on cases that no one else would. The integrity to mentor the next generation, the conviction that justice was not just a profession, but for him it was a calling. He was a leader in the courtroom. He was a leader in the classroom, and he was a leader in our community. He was a model for what public service looks like at its best. And Mr. Speaker, as a former educator myself, I know a good teacher when I see one. Fergie taught us all. And so today I honor his life, I honor his work, and I offer my deepest condolences to his family, to his children, to his grandchildren, to his great-grandchildren, and his many friends across Charlotte and across this country. And let us remember him not only in words, but in action, by picking up the work that he left behind, but by fighting the fights that he could not finish, and by standing tall in the truth that he lived. May he rest in power. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Kustoff, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to honor a good friend, James Moore Sr., who passed away on May 15th of this year. He lived his life in Shelby County, Tennessee. And by the way, for the purposes of these remarks, everybody at home just knew him as Jimmy. Jimmy loved his family, golf, public service, and the car leasing business, probably in that order. The longtime owner of Jimmy Moore Leasing, Jimmy never met a customer nor a person that he could probably not connect to in some way, shape, or form. Probably the same way he connected to people on the golf course. Jimmy really shined as a public servant. In public service, Jimmy was elected numerous times as a respected member of the Memphis City Council, and then a number of times as the circuit court clerk of Shelby County. Jimmy was a true public servant in every sense of the word. Jimmy was the type of guy that when you were frustrated that City Hall wasn't doing enough about the trash being collected, you called Jimmy and he got the trash picked up, usually the same day. Jimmy was the type of guy that when the traffic lights weren't working, you called him and he would get it taken care of right away the same day. It may have not been his department or his agency, but Jimmy was the guy that you called when you needed your driver's license or marriage license or business license expedited, and he would get to the right people who would get back to you and get it taken care of, usually the same day. As the circuit court clerk, he managed the case filings, the employees, the litigants, and the judges, and kept all the trains on the track. Here are two important things about Jimmy. He truly loved people, and he truly loved helping people. I talked to my friend Steve Sampson, who was the juvenile court clerk of Shelby County, and also Joy Tuliadis, who followed Steve as the juvenile court clerk of Shelby County. This is what Joy told me about Jimmy and her relationship with him. Joy Tuliadis told me, if Jimmy was your friend, he was your friend for life. If Jimmy walked into the room, people knew that he had your back. Jimmy dedicated his life to making sure that he left Shelby County a better place to live and to raise a family. Jimmy will be remembered not only for his leadership to our community, but also as a devoted husband, a loving father and grandfather, and a loyal friend. To Jimmy's beloved wife, Barbara, and his beloved children, Linda and Jimmy Jr., and Wendy and Tim, Roberta and I mourn with you, but we also have so many fond memories of your husband and your father. Jimmy's loss is a true loss to our community. There is no doubt that Jimmy Moore is greatly missed. And with that, Madam Speaker, I'll yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Davis, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to honor the service of Richard Doc Borsicki, a Vietnam War veteran and constituent of North Carolina's 1st Congressional District. A native of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Doc has dedicated his life to selfless sacrifice. After enlisting in the Marine Corps as a hospital corpsman, 3rd class, Doc flew into the heart of danger to execute medevac helicopter support missions, flown by an exceptionally skilled and resilient crew consisting of a pilot, co-pilot, crew chief, 2 gunners, and a skilled combat-trained Navy corpsman. Medevac helicopter support personnel volunteered to fly these missions anywhere, anytime, 7 days a week. In August of 1969, Doc, a 19-year-old, deployed to Da Nang. Almost instantly, Marines stationed there came under heavy artillery and rocket fire. But Doc stood tall, going on to fly 250 combat support missions over 12 months outside the wire. Amidst the fog of war, Doc and his fellow Marines sought refuge where they could. At the Sacred Heart Orphanage in Da Nang, Doc spent time with forgotten children, many of whom had fathers that had served alongside him. Doc captured one such kid on camera. His name was Kirk Killerhals. After being adopted by a U.S. Army veteran, Kirk came to America. In 2017, when he learned of his past, he met the man who had volunteered at his orphanage to escape the tragedy of war. Through it all, Doc touched the lives of not only these children, but of countless service members wounded in battle who never knew his name. His story shines a light on the forgotten heroes of one of the most consequential conflicts in world history. And it reminds us that all those who have served are deserving of our everlasting gratitude. When they returned home, Vietnam veterans did not receive a hero's welcome as their parents and grandparents had following the world wars. Instead, their service went unnoticed, unappreciated, unknown. By taking the time to honor their patriotism and sacrifice, especially of those whose responsibility it was to save the lives of service members wounded in battle, we're taking one step towards righting that wrong. In the end, it was former Marine Corps Commandant General Chapman who best summarized what helicopter support meant to Marines on the ground in Vietnam, proclaiming, "When a Marine in Vietnam is wounded, surrounded, hungry, low on ammunition or water, he looks to the sky and he knows the choppers are coming." Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Alford, for 5 minutes.
Well, Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize our July Veteran of the Month, Edward Eugene Holmes. He was a proud Missourian and a resident of the Missouri Veterans Home, and I got a chance to meet him this past winter. He just left this earth last month at the age of 99, and we want to take the time to honor his life and legacy today. Edward was born on April 7th of 1926. He joined the U.S. Navy in June of 1944, and just weeks after graduating from high school. He served as a gunner's mate in the Pacific during World War II and was later assigned to the USS Alt, part of the Seahorse Squadron, in preparation for the invasion of Japan. After the war ended, Edward remained on duty during the occupation until January of 1946, and during his service he traveled the world, from Australia to Africa to Japan and back home through the Panama Canal. He was honorably discharged with the rank of Seaman First Class. After the Navy, Edward built a long and successful career in the floral industry and was known for his love of fishing, golfing, hunting, and making breakfast for his grandchildren. He was a proud father of 3 sons, grandfather to 6, and great-grandfather to 13. Madam Speaker, Edward Holmes served his country faithfully with honor, humility, and all his heart. And it's my privilege to recognize him posthumously as our July Veteran of the Month. Well, Madam Speaker, today we honor a true American patriot, Master Sergeant Roger William Swank, as our August Veteran of the Month. He was born in Wichita, Kansas, and reared in Fort Scott. He answered the call to serve in 1967, spent over 36 years in uniform, including time in Vietnam with the 199th Light Infantry Brigade. Roger earned the Purple Heart, the Combat Infantry Badge, and numerous other awards. He continued his service in the Missouri Army National Guard for more than 3 decades and retired in 2004. Off the battlefield, he was just as committed, serving as a mail carrier, a community leader, and a devoted family man. He was married to his wife, or he has been married to his wife, Linda, for 35 years, and together they have reared 7 daughters. Even in retirement, Roger remains a pillar of his community by volunteering with the Red Cross, serving his church for more than 40 years, and acting as assistant chaplain for the Disabled American Veterans Organization. Thank you, Roger. Thank you so much for your lifelong service to our country and our communities. You are an inspiration to us all. Madam Speaker, today we're proud to honor Ann's Acres, a generational family in Lincoln, Missouri, in the 4th District, as our July Small Business of the Month. Since 1999, Robert and Leslie Exendine, along with their 3 daughters and 6 grandkids, have cultivated 5 acres with nearly 7,000 blooming blueberry plants. Say that 10 times fast. This vibrant farm, named for the sacred middle name of Leslie and their daughter Katie, is a cornerstone of our district during its peak 3-week season from Father's Day to the 4th of July. Ann's Acres welcomes over 200 visitors, including local school kids. The gift shop delights a lot of people with the aroma and freshly baked blueberry muffins and refreshing slushies. I'm hungry now. Robert, a retired Air Force mechanic from Whiteman Air Force Base, and his family are now expanding, adding 8,000 strawberry plants for next spring. Congratulations to the Exendine family, including Katie and her sons, for their dedication. And let's all go visit them in Lincoln, Missouri. Madam Speaker, today I rise to honor Dan and Jerry's Greenhouse, a small business gem in Harrisonville, Missouri in the 4th District, our August Small Business of the Month. For years, Dan and Jerry's been a cornerstone of our community. Their Farm Fresh Selects trial garden tests hundreds of plant varieties each year, making sure only the best make it to our gardens. Beyond their exceptional products, they foster community spirit through events like the annual Arts and Crafts Fair, Fall Festival, and Plant a Flower for Mom on Mom's Day. These gatherings create lasting memories and strengthen our small-town bonds, and we are honored to be able to visit this phenomenal spot this August during an in-district work period. Thank you for your dedication to excellence and community, and let's get to Harrisonville and visit them as well. Thank you, Ann's Acres, for being our August Small Business of the Month. Madam Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Johnson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today full of gratitude and pride for the incredible people of North Texas, my neighbors and my constituents, who have stepped up in extraordinary ways to help their fellow Texans through one of the most devastating disasters our state has faced in years. We all know that when tragedy strikes in Texas, we don't wait around for permission to do the right thing. We just show up. We roll up our sleeves, we help our neighbors pick up the pieces, and that has been on full display in the weeks after the floods. I want to take a moment to recognize just a few of the many heroes from Texas' 32nd Congressional District who have gone above and beyond to provide hope and help when it was needed the most. Sabrina Pinales, Ryan Linneman, Savion Lee, David Hartage, and Lauren Sturdy, 5 of my remarkable constituents, didn't think twice before answering the call. They joined their church mission team and headed straight to the hill country where floodwaters had washed away homes overnight. These 5 North Texans have been on the ground every day, helping families, clearing debris, delivering supplies, and rebuilding what was lost. They remind us that faith in action, helping neighbor to neighbor, is what holds this state together when times are hard. I also want to lift up the brave men and women of the Plano Fire Department and first responders from Dallas. When floodwaters rose and families needed rescue, these heroes did what they always do. They run towards the danger. They deployed to Central Texas to help rescue stranded families, clear the roads, make sure entire communities could get back on their feet safely. They represent the very best of our communities: courage, commitment, and compassion. And it's not just these few. Across North Texas, neighbors have opened their doors to displaced families. Churches, synagogues, and mosques have collected food, clothing, and essentials. Local businesses have donated truckloads of supplies. Nonprofits like the North Texas Food Bank have mobilized to get fresh meal and water to families who've lost everything in just seconds. Countless volunteers have driven hours to help strangers through this terrible disaster. These are who Texans are. We are defined by our resilience, by our people, by our willingness to stand shoulder to shoulder and say, "We got you." You know, our state has faced immense tragedy with hundreds of victims, many of whom were children, little girls, excited to go to summer camp to make new friends and create memories that would last for a lifetime. Our entire nation mourns those that we have lost and holding close to families who are doing everything they can just to make it through each day, hour by hour. And those families, those victims, they deserve answers. We must hold state and federal officials accountable. We have a new chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, Mr. Garabino from New York. It is my hope that he will respond to our calls to convene the Homeland Security Committee for an oversight hearing of these floods, to examine what went wrong and how our government can do better in the future. Texans deserve a government that matches their generosity. We deserve a government that plans ahead, responds quickly, and never lets politics get in the way of protecting our communities. So today I want to say thank you to Sabrina, Ryan, Savion, David, Lauren, and thank you to the Plano Fire Department and our first responders from Dallas. Thank you to every volunteer, every neighbor, every house of worship, every first responder who has made a difference during this crisis. Mr. Rogers once said, when bad things happen, would happen to all, look for helpers. You will always find people who are helping. We have a lot of helpers in North Texas and across our state who have gone above and beyond to help with their neighbors, and we are damn proud of them. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. De La Cruz, for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Today, I rise to celebrate Mr. Henry Joseph Kolinek Jr.'s 100th birthday on July 28th. Born in 1925 in Green, Texas, Mr. Kolinek graduated from Kennedy High School before attending Texas A&M. After arriving to A&M, he was drafted into the Army Air Corps and served as a staff sergeant during World War II. He flew 35 combat missions as a tail gunner and courageously protected his fellow soldiers. After his service, Mr. Kolinek returned to Texas A&M and earned a degree in agricultural economics. He worked 15 years at Union Carbide before returning to his hometown to join First Nichols Bank, National Bank. His dedication to the bank for over 37 years carried him from vice president to president, and finally to chairman of the board. He retired at the young age of 80. Today, Mr. Kolinek remains active in his community and church, serving as a Rotarian member of a member of the City Council, member of the Chamber of Commerce, and sits on the Karnes County Airport Board as well. On his leisure time, he is often found driving the tractor on his ranch. He is a very proud father, grandfather, and a great-grandfather as well. Happy 100th birthday, Mr. Kolinek. Thank you for your service to our great nation and to your beautiful community. May God bless you and your family. Happy birthday. I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Kennedy, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to honor the life of John Spears, the director of the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library System. Although John only became director of the Buffalo and Erie County Library in April 2022, his brief tenure, backed by 25 years of experience, left an indelible mark on Western New York. John was an inspiring leader who worked tirelessly to expand access and make libraries in Western New York